Welcome back to the Detective Den, where we explore the most intriguing and chilling cases. Today, we delve into a case that not only shook an entire community, but resonated across the world, sparking conversation about justice, empathy, and identity. So grab your detective caps as we take a look at a friendship forged in darkness and a crime born from obsession. In this episode, we take a look at the case of Eddie Ratcliffe and Scarlett Jenkinson, two seemingly average 15-year-old school friends, but hidden beneath the surface lay a shared obsession with violence and death that would eventually spiral into a sinister pact. Eddie Ratcliffe was born in Leigh, Greater Manchester, as the middle child of three siblings. His father ran a small truck company and gym, while his mother was an online fitness coach who later transitioned to become a ski instructor. The Ratcliffe family appeared to live an idyllic life, full of outdoor activities like skiing, boating, and family vacations. Eddie himself was a talented athlete, excelling in kickboxing, even competing at a world championship level by age 11. Despite these outward signs of success, Eddie struggled socially. He had few friends and was socially awkward. Though academically gifted and aiming for a career in microbiology, Eddie felt like an outsider. Scarlett Jenkinson, on the other hand, grew up in Warrington, in what seemed to be a typical suburban setting. Her mother, a teacher, and a father who ran a building and plastering business provided for their family. But Scarlett's life was far from ordinary. Her teenage years were marked by rebellion, self-harm, and substance abuse. She struggled at school, and incidents like arriving intoxicated or under the influence of drugs weren't uncommon. This trouble raised eyebrows, and her peers saw her as an outsider, a troublemaker. Scarlett and Eddie first crossed paths at Culcheth High School during Year 7, and from the start they didn't exactly get along. Scarlett described Eddie as weird, while Eddie found Scarlett equally odd. By Year 8, Scarlett was making shocking statements, declaring herself a Satanist and talking about disturbing ideas. Despite their strange dynamic, something about their mutual sense of alienation drew them closer. They began spending more time together, initially bonding over hours of online gaming and messaging. But soon, their seemingly quirky friendship turned darker. What had once been a place for mutual understanding now became a space where their darkest thoughts festered, unchecked. Over time, the friendship between Eddie and Scarlett deepened, and with it, their shared obsession with death and violence. Both had been social misfits, and together they forged a twisted bond where their darkest impulses could thrive. By January 2023, Eddie and Scarlett had been messaging each other about violent fantasies for months. They had discussed kill lists and shared stories of violence. But for Scarlett, these weren't just fantasies, they were plans in motion. Psychologists who reviewed the case suggested that Scarlett's behaviour could be linked to a complex set of mental health issues, including ADHD and mild autistic traits. Her struggles with social norms and emotional regulation appeared to have created a cocoon of fantasy, a space where violence was a form of control. As their conversations grew darker, Scarlett began to push Eddie to act on their violent thoughts. She viewed him as intellectually superior and leaned on him to execute her twisted plans. In return, Scarlett offered Eddie something he desperately wanted: validation and approval. Scarlett's obsession with vengeance led her to create a kill list of people she wanted to harm, including two boys she claimed had hurt her boyfriend. Eddie, initially hesitant, found himself caught in Scarlett's manipulative web, but she promised him something in return: help with his romantic life. Everything changed when Scarlett transferred to Birchwood High School. There, she met Brianna Ghey, a 16-year-old transgender girl who would unknowingly become the target of Scarlett's dark fantasies. Brianna was vibrant, creative, and deeply loved by those around her. As a transgender girl, Brianna faced challenges of acceptance, but her resilience and kindness were undeniable. She had a passion for expressing herself, particularly through fashion and makeup, and was determined to live authentically, even when faced with prejudice. Despite these struggles, Brianna's trust in others was one of her defining qualities. She befriended Scarlett after a simple compliment about her eyeliner. But what began as a friendship soon soured when Scarlett's obsession grew. Scarlett's message to Eddie marks a chilling turning point. Brianna, who once seemed like a friend, had now become an object in Scarlett's violent fantasies. As their relationship progressed, Scarlett began dehumanizing Brianna, reducing her to a mere target, a tool to fulfill her twisted needs. In late January 2023, Scarlett attempted to poison Brianna with pills. The plan failed, but instead of abandoning the idea, Scarlett turned to Eddie for advice. By now, Scarlett's obsession had completely overtaken her. She was no longer just fantasizing about violence, she was actively planning it. Eddie, who had once been reluctant to get involved, was now suggesting ways to make the murder more effective. Their descent into murder was methodical, planned in dark detail. By early February 2023, the plan to kill Brianna was no longer a fantasy, it was set in motion. Scarlett had thoroughly mapped out the attack, rehearsing every detail and even creating code words to trigger the murder. Scarlett and Eddie's messages revealed a chilling determination. They had settled on stabbing as their method of choice, and created elaborate plans to carry out the murder in a public space. They had rehearsed the attack in their minds, as though it were a twisted game. Psychologists suggest that the growing dehumanization of Brianna, through transphobic slurs and violent fantasies, may have allowed Eddie and Scarlett to distance themselves from the moral gravity of their actions. They viewed Brianna as an object, not a person. The attack on Brianna took place on February the 11th, 2023. two teenagers lured her into a park under the guise of friendship. What followed was an act of brutal violence. Once in the park, Scarlett and Eddie carried out their attack. Brianna was stabbed multiple times and left to die in a secluded area. Brianna, trusting and kind, had been betrayed by the very people she believed were her friends. Her injuries were so severe that emergency services pronounced her dead at the scene. The murder was swift and cold, executed with the same lack of empathy that characterised Scarlett's plans all along. Police launched an immediate investigation, and within hours, the quiet town became a hub of activity as forensic teams scoured the scene for evidence. Brianna's death was initially treated as an isolated incident, but the brutality of the attack suggested that it was no accident. It was during this time that Scarlett and Eddie's dark connection to the crime began to unravel. Witness reports and security footage from the surrounding area quickly placed the teenagers near the park on the day of the murder. Shockingly, after the murder of Brianna, Scarlett sent messages to her phone. These texts were an unsettling effort to cover her tracks and make it appear as though she had no involvement in the crime. Scarlett's messages were sent only hours after the murder. This calculated move was likely an attempt to make it seem as though she and Eddie were concerned friends, unaware of Brianna's fate. It was a disturbing ploy designed to create a false trail for investigators. The prosecution argued that Scarlett's messages to Brianna weren't just chilling, they were deliberate acts of deception. She knew Brianna couldn't respond, but by sending those texts, she attempted to distance herself from the crime and build a false alibi. After the shocking murder of Brianna, the wheels of justice began to turn. Eddie and Scarlett's messages, combined with CCTV footage, led police straight to them.
You Eddie?
Yeah.
Eddie, you're locked up suspicion of murder, alright? You don't have to say anything, but you may harm you eventually, don't mention when questioned. See you later line of court, and if you do say evidence, do you understand?
Yeah. I can explain it.
No, listen.
Right, listen.
Do it all on interview, alright?
Yeah.
You're going to take it to the wrong corner, you'll be interviewed about it, they'll ask you questions, alright?
Yeah.
Scarlett, this is what I've got to say.
Yeah.
At this moment, because the information I have received, you are under arrest on suspicion of murder. Obviously you are under caution, so anything you say is getting recorded. Okay?
Confirm me being suspect is because I was the last person seen her, or how come I'm a suspect?
Pardon?
How come I'm a suspect?
How come you're a suspect?
Because I'm the last person that's seen her, is it?
I don't know. All the information I've received is you are a suspect, okay, for the murder.
Yeah.
Both Eddie Ratcliffe and Scarlett Jenkinson were arrested and charged. What followed was a highly publicised trial that would reveal more disturbing details about their relationship and the chilling nature of their crime. Their messages, exchanged in the days leading up to the attack, played a crucial role in linking them to Brianna's death. The arrest of Eddie Ratcliffe and Scarlett Jenkinson stunned their communities. The trial of Eddie and Scarlett began in the fall of 2023. The prosecution argued that the murder was premeditated and that the two teenagers had conspired to kill Brianna in cold blood. They pointed to the chilling messages exchanged between the pair, where they had discussed methods of murder, mocked Brianna's identity and rehearsed the attack. Psychologists and experts in criminal behaviour testified during the trial, explaining how both Eddie and Scarlett had been influenced by their shared fascination with violence and their struggles with social isolation. Scarlett's history of mental health issues, including ADHD and mild autistic traits, were examined, but it did not excuse her actions. The court also heard that Eddie, though initially hesitant, had actively participated in the planning and execution of the crime. Scarlett's behaviour throughout the trial was chilling. She showed little to no emotion for her actions, instead attempting to justify the murder through a warped sense of justice. Eddie too seemed emotionally detached, offering only a limited defence for his involvement. The lack of empathy from both defendants left the courtroom in stunned silence. After weeks of testimony, the jury returned a guilty verdict for both Eddie and Scarlett. The judge, noting the calculated and cold nature of the crime, sentenced both of them to life in prison.
I have weighed all the aggravating and mitigating factors that apply to each of you. In Scarlett's case, the aggravating features are significant and would have led to a substantial uplift to the starting point, but for the mitigation, particularly that relating to maturity and mental disorder. But the extent to which it reduced your culpability in the circumstances of this offending is limited. This was undoubtedly a very serious offence with multiple aggravating factors. The parole board will have to decide if and when either or both of you can be released. That will only happen if you no longer pose a danger. I will now sentence each of you. You may remain seated. Scarlett Jenkinson, for the murder of Brianna Ghey, you will be detained at His Majesty's pleasure. I set the minimum term at 22 years, less the 352 days that you have spent on remand. Eddie Ratcliffe, for the murder of Brianna Ghey, you will be detained at His Majesty's pleasure. I set the minimum term at 20 years, less the 352 days that you have spent on remand. Please take the defendants to the cells.
The loss of Brianna, a young woman full of promise and potential, was devastating. But the trial also highlighted a deeper issue: how an unhealthy obsession with violence can fester in isolation, fueled by digital spaces and unchecked mental health struggles. Though justice has been served in the eyes of the law, the emotional scars left by Brianna's death remain. Her friends and family continue to mourn the loss of a vibrant, kind-hearted young woman who was taken from them far too soon. The tragedy of her murder serves as a reminder of the dangers of unchecked hatred, online toxicity, and the importance of intervention in troubled relationships. Brianna's story should not just be about the violence that ended her life. It should be about the love, resilience, and joy she brought to the world, a legacy that continues to inspire those who knew her. Her friends, her family, and her community now rally around her memory, ensuring that she is remembered for who she truly was. The case of Eddie Ratcliffe and Scarlett Jenkinson is a tragic reminder of the deep consequences that can result from toxic relationships, unchecked obsession, and the horrors that can emerge when individuals are lost in the shadows of their own minds. Brianna's life was stolen, but her story lives on, serving as a beacon for those who believe in justice, compassion, and the fight against violence. Thank you for joining us on The Detective Den as we explored this chilling case. If you enjoyed this episode, please like, subscribe, and leave a comment below. Stay safe, and remember, sometimes the most dangerous minds hide behind the most innocent faces.